Shout out to our buddies at In This League podcast. I believe they were among the first to pioneer this player versus player type of thing. Josh has done an excellent job of getting it out to the masses as well. And now we appropriate it here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. They say the greatest form of flattery is imitation. So we're going to do a show that's been done, not with these specific names, but a type of show that's been done, and that is a player versus player comparison. But the little tweak that we're going to have on that in this show is it's all yours. I put a tweet out last night at Dan Vespers, if you guys want to be involved in any of this stuff going forward. Also follow at Old Man Squad. And please, YouTubers, hit that like button right here at the beginning. Pause what you're doing, hit the like. It's so easy. You don't have to do anything else. Everybody, please subscribe. And again, if you have thoughts on any of this stuff, feel free to throw them in the comments section after the show. 5-star reviews also appreciated. You guys came through in a big, big way. Last night, I think I can't pull it up right this second because I've got a window open that's blocking it. I basically just said, who are some players that you're stuck on? You keep finding yourself debating between the same two guys over and over and over again. Let me try to talk through it with you. And you guys came through with a lot of different options. One thing that I am extraordinarily grateful to all of you is that when I put out a question asking for mailbag stuff or submissions or whatever, you guys come through consistently in the mid double digits. And that makes it a lot easier for me to come up with the direction on where we want to go. So my goal today is to try to hit all of them. One that came over from YouTube just a moment ago, and that's where we're going to open, and I don't have a graphic for this one because it just popped up in a different thread, was Jalen Johnson or Jalen Williams. A battle of the Jaylens. A reasonable place to start because it's a battle that I've had myself. Do you like Jalen Williams or do you like Jalen Johnson? They're pretty different from a fantasy stat set perspective, but I love them both. Jalen Williams, who we just talked about on a show earlier today and had a terrific end-of-season run last year in the early 30s, was around 19 to 20 points per game. Terrific percentages, 53% from the field, 82% at the foul line the last 25 games last year. 4 boards, 4.5 assists, 2.3 combined defensive stats. Low turnovers, fairly low rebounds as well. Jalen Johnson, over that same stretch, was actually a little bit beat up. He wasn't as healthy. He played only 15 of those games. He averaged 17 points, 9 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1.9 combined defensive stats, 48% from the field, 68% at the foul line. Three-pointer count was somewhat similar. My answer to you guys here on this show is the same as the answer I typed in the comment section, and that is I prefer Jalen Williams between the two of them. Jalen Johnson, probably the guy who takes the larger step forward between the two, just in terms of like, what's he going to get to do? But Jalen Williams is the guy that gives me the percentages, and that's a category that I consistently like to attack. I get it. It's hard to turn down the bonus rebounds that you're going to get out of Johnson. But when you figure the scoring is probably going to be relatively close between the two guys, defense is relatively close, threes are relatively close. Jalen Johnson with the rebounding edge, Jalen Williams with the percentages edge. I'm going to go with the guy that gets me the efficiency. And now we throw up the graphic, which, by the way, shout out to all of you guys on Twitter. You're going to get your handles on today's show. It's our W was and I don't know how Twitter arranged these things, but we're just going to scroll through them right here on the show. It says Derek White or Jalen Williams. That one is Jalen Williams, and it's frankly not extraordinarily close for me, which maybe it should be a little bit closer because Derek White was great last year. And actually down the stretch, he was even greater. He was top 20 the last 25 games. I think they actually end up relatively tight to one another. Their games are quite close. Derek White's going to win the three-pointers battle between himself and Jalen Williams. He's also going to win the assist battle and free throw battle between the two. Jalen Williams is likely to win points, probably steals, although I guess White maybe wins blocks there, and field goal percent. So either way, you're probably getting someone that, in my mind, ends up ranked somewhere between 20 and 35 this year. But it's actually a really good question. The replies on Twitter, there was one reply, you can see it on your screen, was just like, yeah, it's Jalen Williams and it's a runaway. I don't think it's a runaway. I also prefer Jalen Williams in a little box, but also these guys are not going that close to one another. If you have pick 38 or something like that, Jalen Williams, there's a decent shot he's gone already, and typically Derek White is lasting into the mid to late 40s. Not that you could necessarily get both, but it's not impossible. If you had Jalen Williams in the third, White in the fourth, you could get both those dudes. Probably have a scoring issue on your team, but everything else is going to be really, really good. So Jalen Williams by a little bit. Honestly, this one might even be closer than Jalen Williams versus Jalen Johnson. But Derek White gets pooped on because he only scores 14 points, and the other guys are going to score more than him. But his free throw is great. Defensive stats were great. The assists down the stretch last year were over 6. I don't know if you guys remember that. He went on an assist binge. Now, guys were resting in some of those ball games, so that's part of it. But he'll be at 5 for the year, and he's probably going to get to do a little bit more with no Porzingis around. So give me Jalen Williams by a little bit, but it's not all that far apart. The other question on the screen you guys can see right now, Scottie Barnes or Damian Lillard. This one's a little bit more team-based. In a vacuum, I'm probably going Dame. They were extraordinarily close for the whole season. They were extraordinarily close for chunks of the season. If you're looking down the stretch, Scottie Barnes was generally hurt during that spell, but Dame was ahead of him by like a half a round. And then for the beginning of the season, Scottie Barnes was ahead by a half round. They are, I don't want to say polar opposites in terms of what they do on a basketball court, but it's pretty freaking far apart. Dame is going to win the scoring battle and threes. Scottie Barnes is going to win rebounds. The only thing they're going to be close in probably is assists. They were both around 7 the second half of last year. Barnes is probably going to win steals and blocks and field goal percent. Dame is going to run away with free throw percent. So it's hard for me to say one is just definitively better than the other. If you didn't tell me who you had in the first round, I'd probably go Dame for the extraordinarily high floor. But Scottie Barnes of the two guys is the one that could still push a little bit farther. So I kind of understand it both ways. But I go Dame. Next one. And we're going to try to move through these, your dilemmas about 1 to 2 minutes per. And that'll put us right on schedule for a normal length show. Kenji. What's up, Kenji? D'Lo, Beal, and Poole all together in this same 60 to 80 range. Well, Poole is right out for me on this one. I actually like Jordan Poole this year, but I don't like him unless I can get him in the 90s, at least the mid to late 80s. Beal and D'Lo are typically going earlier than that. I'm seeing Beal in the 70s. I'm seeing D'Lo late 70s, early 80s. So let's, for all intents and purposes on this show, D'Lo or Bradley Beal. I just did a draft where I took D'Lo over Beal. And I've also done drafts where I've taken Beal over D'Lo. And even though they're both guards, they are also pretty different in what they put up last season. Scoring is the same. D'Lo's running away with three-pointers. D'Lo should win the assists battle, especially with the Suns getting deeper. Steals are close. Blocks are close. Beal by a lot in field goal percent. Free throws somewhat tight as well. So you're kind of debating between whether you want the threes and the assists or the field goal percent. And that's basically the jump there. Now, Beal's field goal percent could be such a wide gap between the two that it puts him out in front. That's a possibility. But believe it or not, in a vacuum, excluding, again, the possibility that you might be able to get both of these guys. If you go Beal at I'm trying to think of how the numbers work out. Like, let's say you had pick 70, end of the 6th round, you could probably go Beal, and then 5 picks later, you could probably go D'Lo and get them both. But let's say I'm picking between both of them at pick 73, 72, 73. I guess you get both of those. Just try to ignore the fact that you'd get both of those. If I'm choosing straight up between the two of them in the early 70s, I'm probably going D'Angelo Russell. I think he's typically healthier, and I think they're going to be so close in rank, probably both somewhere between 50 and 70, that I'll just go with the guy that I think is going to play more games. And that's effectively what separated the two dudes last year. D'Lo played 23 more games than Beal, even though they finished very close to one another. And both of them were good, particularly in the second half. Surprised you guys with that one, didn't I? Curran says, I find myself between Zion and Jimmy in round 4 a lot. For 9-cat, I'm going Jimmy Butler in this one. And I know that that's not actually the popular decision. For Roto, it is. That's a pretty easy call, even on head-to-head. Because Zion finally made it through most of a season last year. He played 70 out of 82 games. That's a huge win for him. And suddenly we're just like, oh, yeah, he's fine. He's not hurt anymore. I don't think that the injury risk with Jimmy is all that much greater than Zion. And with one of these two dudes, you are basically choosing to punt free throws. Not because you have to punt them if you take Zion in the 4th round. You can get a couple of good foul shooters to wipe out his negative. But why would you? That's the issue that I want you guys to try to put together, those two things at the same time. Zion doesn't force you to punt free throws, but taking him in the 4th round, you probably should. Because Zion was ranked 111 last year if you cared about his foul shooting. There's absolutely no reason to spend a 4th round pick on him if you care about foul shooting, when there's other guys available to you that you don't have to worry about what stat they're going to break on your basketball team. And Jimmy Butler is not my favorite choice at that juncture because it does seem like he's starting to age a little bit. But, never know with contract year. He might be one of those guys that cares enough to play a little harder this season. So let's say for this discussion, Jimmy Butler's injury risk is just a tiny bit higher than Zion's. You can't say by all that much. Last year, they were separated by 80 rank slots if you weren't punting anything. And I don't know what you're punting, so I'll go Butler. Oh, Itzal comes in again. Tari Eason or Grayson Allen? It's actually a good one. We don't really know how many minutes Grayson Allen is going to get this year. And that's disappointing because he was awesome last season. He was number 58 for the year on the shoulders of one of the most efficient shooting seasons that I can remember, especially from like a non-name brand player. He was basically a 50-40-90 guy. He was 50% from the field, 88% at the foul line, and he did it while hitting 2.7 threes per ball game. That's crazy. But he also played 34 minutes a night on a team that brought in Tyus Jones and re-signed Royce O'Neal and has actual legitimate depth all of a sudden that they didn't have last year. So what does that mean? Do his minutes go down by 4 or 5? Because every little thing you remove from his usage is a real buzzkill, because he's a guy that saw positive impact from every little thing he did on the court, because he was positive in field goal, positive in free throw, low in turnovers, not really impacted by playing a ton of minutes. There aren't a whole lot of things that get better as you take him off the court. Like, what does 1.3 turnovers become? 1.2? Who cares? It's going to hurt points, threes, assists, field goal, and free throw percent. All of those become less positive. But at the same time, we don't really know what Tari Eason's health is like. He played 22 minutes a game last year, averaged 10 and 7 with 2.3 defensive stats. Does that really, those are huge defensive numbers in 22 minutes. I don't think that's the kind of thing that's going to stick. That probably comes, if he played 27, 28 minutes, he could probably do that. But 22 minutes again to get to those numbers? Probably not. He's a great rebounder, great steals guy from his spot. I like Tari Eason a lot. But in terms of, if we're playing the game of which of these guys probably finishes with the higher 9-cat rank, is probably Grayson Allen. Because you're probably talking about someone who finishes top 100 versus Eason, who's probably top 120, 130, something like that. But if the question is who has the better shot to really pop off this year, it's potentially Eason. Because if he and Amen Thompson start to play their way in front of any of the starters and Tari starts to get 26, 27 minutes instead of 22 to 25, oh, okay, well, now you're talking about a real game-changing type of fantasy line. What am I doing with my 13th, 14th round pick between those two guys? I'm probably going Eason, because I bet you if Grayson Allen doesn't get off to a great shooting start this year, he probably ends up on the wire. Although, frankly, both of these guys probably do. So I'll go Tari by a nose. It's how you got too many of these things. What if we include Drew Holiday in the Beal D'Lo discussion? I can make this one fast. Drew is last for me out of those three guys. Boom. Mally What's up, Mally? Fox and Maxey, both around the same mark and fill the same slot, both taking in an all-star. Both will take a hit this season. Yeah, you're not wrong. Fox adding DeMar DeRozan, Maxey adding Paul George to his team. Both guys finished very close to the same ranks last year. Maxey was number 19. Fox was number 24. Hair splitting 101 once again. Both guys were relatively healthy last year. Maxey 70 games, Fox 74. Maxey 26 points, Fox 26.5. Both guys 3-3-pointers. Fox wins by 1 rebound. Maxey wins by a half an assist. Fox by a steal. Both guys field goal percent between 45 and 47. Maxey obliterating Fox in free throws. So the big gap between the two guys, free throws for Maxey, steals for Fox. So you're kind of making the call based on that. If we're just looking at straight rank, and we're assuming both guys take some kind of usage hit, so they both move down the board at the same pace in that regard, what if the other things they did last year is the least repeatable? My assessment, this is more gut than fact, though, is that Fox maintaining 2 steals a game is going to be hard. I think he can be a good steals guy, but if you bring that 2 even down to like 1.8, he falls half a round. So that type of stuff starts to sort of stockpile. Although you could say the same thing with Maxey. Like if his free throws go from 5.5 down to 4.5, how much does that hurt? I mean, not as much. Fox had the one kind of runaway stat between those two guys that if that takes a hit in any way, he falls quicker than anything else that happens. So I'll go Maxey between those two guys. With the caveat that Maxey probably falls farther on the Paul George edition than Fox does on the DeMar DeRozan edition, but Maxey was a half round ahead anyway. So if everything else stayed exactly the same and you just factor in the addition of another all-star, Maxey probably takes the bigger hit, but what does that put him? Now that puts him like a half round behind. Basically, the Maxey grab is in case Fox's steals fall off. But this one is very much razor's edge. Ube says AD, Giannis, or Tyrese Halliburton at 5. I think at some point we'll do a show where we just like go through the first round and do 1 versus 2, 2 versus 3, 3 versus 4 kind of thing. There's a few of those out there already, and I thought it'd be kind of piling on that same content type. Although I break it down differently than the one I most recently listened to. So there may be still a value in that. This, for me, is a head-to-head versus Roto discussion. Roto, I'm going Anthony Davis, then Halliburton, then Giannis, because Giannis, for me, is not really he's not a guy I'm taking to start a Roto team. I think it makes your job kind of hard because it shrinks the board. Head-to-head, I'm totally fine with that. Shrink the board, lean into the stuff you're going to muck up and whatever. Head-to-head is AD, then Giannis, then Halliburton. So again, Roto, you flip those last two. AD is my first of this group. I just it's so hard to find a guy who's a top 3 true per gamer, and Anthony Davis has an actual shot at that. Halliburton, I think, is more like a back end of the first round per game guy. Giannis is a mid first if you're punting free throw, but if he's more like a third rounder if you're not. So weigh those things accordingly on how you want to build your team. This one, it's not about anybody's job changing. Halliburton, his job did change a bit when Pascal Siakam came to town. But for me, AD is the runaway winner for these 3. And then the other 2 you flip-flop based on what mode you're rolling in. Nomad asks, Devin Booker or Donovan Mitchell? Ooh, that's a good one, Nomad. Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. Devin Booker was number 16 last year. He played in 68 ball games. Donovan Mitchell was number 8 last year. He played in 55 ball games. Interestingly, when you just look at totals, Booker's the winner because of the games played edge. Not by a lot, though. Booker was 21. Donovan Mitchell was 29. They basically flip-flopped. Booker kind of stayed where he was, and Donovan Mitchell was slingshotted almost the same distance on the opposite side. I expect the Suns to be a little bit healthier this year. I also expect Donovan Mitchell to be a little bit healthier this year, but I don't know by how much. This one may come down to how risky my first round pick was. If I'm sitting on, Joel Embiid late in the first round, I'm not going to go Donovan Mitchell after that. It's too much risk. If I'm sitting on a Jason Tatum, I'll take a little risk in the second round and try to get that per game upside guy. In a vacuum, Donovan Mitchell is my choice just because he has the chance. If those guys play the same number of games, Donovan Mitchell beats him by probably a half round to a round. Odds are Booker probably plays more, but it's not guaranteed. So give me Donovan Mitchell, but I do kind of like them both. Luke Bell says Paul George or Jalen Johnson. I think I'm going PG on this one. I know he's going to take a pretty goodly hit, but he was already only at 16.7 shots per game last year. I don't think that comes down all that much, frankly, from 16.7. What do we think? 15? Like he'll find a way to get a lot of shots up. So I think we've overdone it on the Paul George drop-off. He'll drop from 11 for sure. He's going to be lower, but Jalen Johnson was in the 40s last year. We need him to take a big jump to get into the 20s, and he might. Odds are, actually, he probably does make some kind of jump. It's one of the reasons we like Jalen Johnson. But Paul George just has to not fall off a cliff. Small drop-off, medium drop-off. Either one of those things, you have a much higher floor with PG. So I'll go Paul George on this one. I assume we're talking about, like a pick near 30. And you've got, I think, greater upside. Jalen Johnson isn't going to be a first rounder this year unless there's a few things that could maybe get him there. But it's hard. It's real hard to get that high up the board. So I'll go Paul George. And this one, to me, wasn't super duper close. But I do like Jalen Johnson a lot. I just think Paul George, we've discounted him too much. Austin asks 3. All right, we'll lightning round these 3. Jimmy Butler or DeMar DeRozan? I'll go Butler. I think he beats DeRozan by about 2 rounds on a per-game basis, and I'm hoping that Butler gets into mid to high 60s in games this year. I get it, though. Head-to-head, that's a tough call to make. Ivica Zubac or Jakob Poeltl? We'll go Poeltl. The punt free throw thing hurts a little bit. Poeltl's free throw do hurt, but he just got the higher upside in steals, assists, and yeah, it's a hard to come by. Herb Jones versus Alex Caruso versus Jalen Suggs. I prefer Caruso of those 3 guys, then probably Herb, and then Suggs. So you got lightning rounded, Austin. If you're going to ask for 3 of them, I can't go into detail on all 3. I've lost track of how many of these I've done and how many are left, so we're just going to keep going, and I hope that the timing works out. That will. Gino says, round 8-9 range, Tyler Hero, Bradley Beal, Jordan Poole. This one's Beal for me by quite a bit, actually. Beal has top 50 potential. I don't think Hero or Poole get anywhere near that. Jordan Poole, if you're punting turnovers, has a shot to be a top 50 guy. I think without that, he's got a shot to be top 70. Tyler Hero, I don't even know what to expect. Not only is he beat up on an annual basis, but they added Terry Rozier because they were like, Hero, you can't stay healthy. We're going to bring in this other dude who does the same stuff as you. So Hero gives me a lot of pause. So that one goes Beal, Poole, Hero for me. This is a joke. Ohtani first pick. Yeah, I think we'll probably go Shohei on the baseball side. Z says 3rd round choice. I'm having issues. I'm going to add, this is an editorial on my side. Karl Anthony Towns, Bam Adebayo, Alperen Şengün, and Jaren Jackson Jr., the 4 bigs of the 3rd round. The 4 bigs of the 3rd round. So, again, we'll go vacuum style. In a vacuum, Şengün is out for me on this one. Not because I dislike him or his fantasy game, but because he's bad at foul shooting. And so last year, if you're going on just sheer 9-cat weighted rankings, he was number 61, largely because he was a giant negative in free throws. If you don't care about that, he was number 24 last year, which beats all of these guys. So punt free throw, that's Şengün. Easy call, don't look back. 9-cat, he's not even, for me, competing with these other 3 guys here, especially if you're going roto. That stuff adds up. So for me now, it's Cat, Bam, or JJJ. And, I mean, any one of these could go one of different directions. JJJ is the most polarizing one. He was down to number 52 last year because his blocks fell down to 1.6 instead of 3. If those jump back up into the mid to high 2s, all of a sudden you're talking about probably the best in this group. Cat is and Bam are both extraordinarily safe picks, very close to one another. Cat was 44, Bam was 51, but there was almost no question about what they're going to do. Bam has the durability advantage over Cat. So between those two guys, I would go Adebayo. Cat has the scoring edge at 22 points per game, but has missed a ton of time over the last few seasons, really since his body kind of broke down, results of perhaps many years of doing the Tom Thibodeau routine. Neither one of those two guys, unfortunately, for Cat and Bam, have really much in the way of upside, the way that JJJ does if the blocks do come roaring back. And that's what makes this decision a tough one, and that makes this question a really good one. If I have a choice of all three of them around pick, say, end of the third round, which is where roughly the mid to end third round for all three, I probably go JJJ and hope to catch lightning in a bottle. Because, again, I think a worst-case scenario is he finishes just behind these two dudes. Then Bam, and then Cat is my last choice, even though that's the exact opposite order that they finished last year on a per-game basis. I don't think we're getting anything more out of Cat than what we got. I don't know that we're getting any more out of Bam than we got, although you could see his free throw maybe creep up a little bit. And with JJJ, I'll go ahead and I'll take the unknown, because I don't think any one of these guys has a super low floor this season, and so I'll take the shot. Sometimes you got to take a shot. Eminem taught us that, and lose yourself. De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker, Scottie Barnes, late second round points league. Oof, getting wacky here. Points league will go De'Aaron Fox. No, that's not so obvious this year, is it? Yeah, I'll go specifically in no, I'll go Booker last. Fox, Scottie, Booker for points league, which might be the exact opposite of the order I would do it in 9-cat. In fact, it is. It's Booker, then Scottie, then Fox for me in 9-cat. So flip it, because Scottie, I'm quick running numbers in my head here. Fox with the free throw issue. Actually, both percentages for Fox were bad last year. Barnes, both percentages were negative. Booker, percentages were generally a good thing for him. I know field goal wasn't like a pronounced positive, but it was a neutral. Free throw was a big positive. I'll go with the guys that derive their value from other stuff, and I don't mind the higher turnover from Scottie Barnes. So Fox, and then Barnes, and then Booker for points league. Flip it for 9-cat. Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis. This is Jokic, and it's not even remotely close. I'm not even going to go into an explanation on that one. Jokic destroys him. Durability, assists, you name it. The only thing you're not getting there is the elite shot blocking, so just make sure you shore that up. Cunningham at pick 18. Well, there's no one else in this discussion, so I'm just going to say no. The analysis. Pascal Siakam. Kempleton says Pascal Siakam or Jimmy Butler. That's a really good question, because Butler's got the huge injury risk, but he's a way better 9-cat guy. Siakam, younger, had the weird free throw shooting season, but we hope that goes away. That would push him back up kind of into that 50 range if the free throw stuff gets better. He played 80 games last year. It's hard to undervalue how important it is for guys to actually be out there on the court. I'm probably going to go Jimmy Butler, just because even in kind of a down year, he's still about 2 rounds better per game than Siakam. And I pray that the gap between them in games played is not as big as it was last year, because if it is, I lose that call. I lose it. Even frankly, just looking at last year, I think I lose that call. What was Butler by totals last season? 54? Siakam had to be in front of him. Yeah, 48. So Siakam was ahead of him. And if he fixes free throws, he beats him by a bunch. But also, that was a pretty bad health year for Butler. So I'll go Jimmy here, and I'll take the shot and hope that he plays in more games. Our Dizzle, Kobe White or D'Angelo Russell? I'm going to go D-Lo. And I think this one, the difference between these two guys flies a little bit under the radar, because a lot of their stuff is similar. Kobe White, 19 points a game last year. And honestly, let's compare these guys the second half of last season, which was when Zach LaVine was fully shut down and D'Lo was fully unleashed. Second half of last year, Kobe White was number 110 in 9-cat on 20 points, a little under 5 rebounds, a little over 5 assists, 2.5 threes, 0.7 steals, 0.1 blocks, and a 44-86 split with 2 turnovers. D'Angelo Russell, the second half, was number 39 in 9-cat, also on 20 points, 3.7 threes, low rebounds, better assists, a steal, 0.4 blocks, 45-87 splits. So a lot of stuff was very similar, but the only things that were different pretty much all favored D'Lo. More threes, more assists, better defensive stats. Give me D'Angelo Russell. That's the answer. And that, actually, I didn't even know that was the last question, but that's the last question of these names. I hope that was mildly entertaining for you guys. I hope that these were decisions that you were also making, and so this didn't end up just being an exercise in answering like 20 individual questions, but it felt like as we were going through, these are dilemmas that come up from time to time. If you liked this video, and I'll ask a similar question on social media as well, but I'd love to get some feedback on this one. If you like this video, please comment and let me know if you'd like me to start doing it in like less erratic chunks. These are 2 players that I'm looking at kind of thing. But I thought it was more interesting to hear who you guys were looking at, because I think it's probably different than what I'm doing. Because like you could do it at the top of the board, and you could do, Wemby versus Jokic, and we've talked about that 25 times on the show in other contexts. And we could do the the one that came up in this one, AD, Giannis, Tyrese Halliburton, that type of stuff. And we could look at the end of the first round, and we could try to really turn it into little quanta. Here's a packet. Here's the first round packet. Here's the second round packet. If that's the kind of thing you guys would like to see, I'm happy to do it. We could probably do them each, 25-minute episodes, 20, 25 minutes per round, and just knock those out, do, the first 5 rounds, 5 straight days one week. Because I'm doing a dozen shows a week right now. It's not that hard for me to just slot 5 of them in. So let me know. Please let me know in the comments section if that would be of any interest to you guys or if it's a total waste of my time. We've got a lot of stuff to cover still, and I'm sure a Yahoo board reshuffling is probably coming in the not too distant future. Other ideas that I've been kind of kicking around over the last little bit. We've still got that mailbag show that I haven't covered. I know people are interested in who perhaps they should be squatting on, like guys that might get really good as the season goes on. A question that was posed in, I think, a different show on YouTube was, what about guys that you don't think you need to draft, but you're going to be watching like a hawk on opening night? And I was like, well, isn't that kind of like the same as who you'd take with like a 14th or a 15th rounder? Because I know the Yahoo leagues only go 13, and you still have your typical flyers to choose from, but like, boy, you get a round or 2 deeper than that, you're into the watch list guys. I don't know. All that said, let me know. That's the end of that. I will tailor these shows a bit on what you guys want to see to a certain degree. Not completely, but a little bit. And then at some point here, we're almost a month away from the start of the season. It'll be time to get into the Dan Besbris buckets. The industry Roto 9-cap mock is currently in the middle of the 8th round, so that's about 2/3 done. When that's done, we're going to talk to all 11 other managers in that league. I'll also do one where I break down my own team. You guys have been clamoring for more Roto stuff, so that'll be a nice quick hit of that over a couple of weeks. I mean, but again, I'm happy to slot in some of these other shows if you want them as well. I'm at Dan Besbris on Twitter, at Old Man Squad. Please, again, like and comment if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe no matter how you're taking in the content, just so we can keep this locomotive running. And a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify really, really, really does actually go a long way. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We will have specialty episodes over the weekend, as per usual. Probably a mock draft among the 2. And then, great news. Great news. The Mighty Slick Rock has episode 2 of Fantasy 101, our fantasy beginner's guide. That will also be airing over the weekend. See you guys soon, everybody.